I always thought my life was finally settling into place. Emily and I had spent 4 years building something I truly believed was unshakable. Our wedding was only one day away, and everyone kept telling me how lucky I was to have found someone like her. But late that night, as I was reviewing a few last-minute details, a notification popped up on her tablet. It was a message from Tyler, her ex, and the tone of it felt far too familiar to ignore. At first, I tried to convince myself it was nothing, just old friends catching up. But then another message appeared, and another, each one making my stomach twist tighter. A strange chill spread through me as I began to realize something was terribly wrong. The closer I looked, the more the edges of our perfect life started to unravel. And in that moment, standing alone in the quiet glow of the screen, I understood that the truth I was about to uncover could destroy everything. The next morning, I woke up with a heaviness in my chest that I couldn't shake. I kept replaying those messages in my mind, wondering if I had misunderstood something, hoping I had overreacted. But the more I thought about it, the more that uneasy feeling grew. When I arrived at the venue to finalize the rehearsal schedule, I noticed Emily's friends whispering among themselves, glancing at me, and then quickly looking away. It wasn't the first time I'd caught them doing that, but today it felt different, sharper, almost deliberate. Megan, who usually greeted me with an over-the-top smile, seemed tense, her voice a little too high-pitched as she asked how I was doing. Before I could answer, she blurted out something about tomorrow being interesting, then instantly clamped a hand over her mouth as if she'd just revealed a secret. Emily shot her a sharp look, and Megan awkwardly excused herself, nearly stumbling over a chair as she rushed away. I stood there, confused, staring after her, and felt that familiar twist in my gut again. Tyler had messaged Emily late at night. Megan was acting strange, and Emily herself looked nervous. Not anxious-excited like a bride usually would be, but nervous in a way that suggested she was hiding something. As we walked through the rehearsal notes, she kept checking her phone, typing quickly, then locking the screen whenever I glanced over. I tried brushing it off, telling myself that wedding pressure affects people differently, but deep down, I knew better. The real confirmation came 15 minutes later. I overheard two of Emily's coworkers talking behind the floral arch, unaware I was just on the other side. One of them said, "Do you think he'll freak out when it happens?" The other laughed nervously and replied, "He's supposed to. That's the point." My blood ran cold. I took a step back, careful not to make a sound, my mind racing with questions I didn't want answers to. What were they planning? What was supposed to happen that would make me freak out? And why did everyone except me seem to already know about it? When I walked back around the arch and joined them, they both froze in place, their faces pale as if they'd seen a ghost. They muttered something about needing to check the seating chart and hurried away without making eye contact. By that point, my suspicion had solidified into a certainty. There was a secret. A big one. And it involved Emily, her friends, and her ex. The rest of the day only added to the dread tightening around my chest. Every interaction felt staged, rehearsed, like they were waiting for something to unfold. Emily tried to act normal, but even she slipped up when she said, "Tomorrow's going to be unforgettable for all of us." She quickly corrected herself, but the damage was already done. The words echoed in my mind long after I left the venue. When I finally sat alone in my car, gripping the steering wheel, I realized I couldn't ignore the truth any longer. Something dangerous was brewing beneath the surface. And whether I was ready or not, I was heading straight into it. That night, after hours of trying to convince myself that everything was just wedding stress, I finally reached a breaking point. I sat alone in my living room, staring at Emily's iPad on the coffee table. She had left it there earlier, carelessly, the way she always did when she was distracted. Normally, I would never even consider going through someone's device, but the weight of the day, the whispers, the glances, the messages, pressed on me until my hands were practically shaking. I tapped the screen, half hoping it would be locked. It was. Her iPad opened straight into her messages, perfectly synced with her phone. And the very first conversation at the top was a group chat titled Wedding Surprise. My heart immediately began pounding so hard I thought I could hear it echo off the walls. I clicked into the chat. The first thing I saw was Tyler's name, followed by Megan's, then Chloe, and finally Emily. All of them talking. All of them planning something that clearly did not include me. I scrolled up, and the truth slammed into me with a force I wasn't prepared for. They were rehearsing a scene. A literal scene. Tyler had written, "I'll stand up when the officiant asks if anyone objects. Emily, you act shocked, but keep pushing him until he reacts." Megan had replied, "Make it emotional. He needs to think you're choosing Tyler." Chloe added, "If he blows up, we'll know he's not committed. If he cries or begs, then it worked." There were voice memos, too. I pressed play on the first one, and the room filled with their laughter. Tyler's voice, "Okay, so I'll say, I can't let this wedding happen." Emily giggling, "No, more dramatic, make it sound real." Megan, "Yeah, we want him to freak out, that's the whole point." I froze. They weren't worried about my feelings. They weren't testing trust. They were setting me up, pushing me, cornering me, expecting me to perform for them like some kind of puppet on my own wedding day. The deeper I went into the conversation, the worse it got. Emily had written earlier that week, "He's too calm. I just want to see how much he's willing to fight for me." Chloe replied, "This will show his true colors." Tyler unbelievably added, "If he gets mad, just tell him it was a prank. He'll get over it." I felt sick. My hands went numb as I kept scrolling, reading comments about how funny it would be, how viral the reaction could become if someone recorded it, how it would be a memory to laugh at later. They talked about my emotions like they were props. My wedding like it was a stage. My love like it was some kind of game. It became clear that this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was deliberate, cruel, calculated, and they all thought I would just accept it. I took screenshots of everything, every message, every voice note, every detail. Then I sat back, staring at the iPad glowing in the dark room, and realized the person I was about to marry was a stranger. A stranger surrounded by people who found joy in tearing others apart for entertainment. And for the first time since the engagement, I wasn't afraid of losing her. I was terrified of what would happen if I didn't. The morning of the wedding felt unreal, as if I were floating through someone else's life. The venue was breathtaking, decorated exactly the way Emily had always dreamed, but all I could see were the messages burned into my mind. People buzzed around me, adjusting flowers, checking microphones, laughing, whispering, completely unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. When Emily arrived, she looked radiant, glowing with the kind of confidence only someone who believed they were fully in control could have. She kissed my cheek and said she couldn't wait for the ceremony, her eyes sparkling with a secret she thought I didn't know. That smile, once comforting, now felt like a mask. I told her she looked beautiful, and she did, but a part of me wondered how many other moments with her had been scripted. The ceremony began, and I walked down the aisle feeling strangely calm, almost steady, because I knew exactly what was coming. I didn't know how it would feel, but I knew the moment was approaching like a slow, inevitable collision. Guests settled into their seats, the music softened, and the officiant began speaking. Every word felt distant, like an echo in a tunnel, until he finally reached the line I'd been waiting for. "If anyone here objects to this marriage, speak now." And just like in the chat, Tyler stood, right on cue. His voice boomed louder than necessary as he declared he couldn't stay silent. A few people gasped. Emily turned dramatically, her hands flying to her mouth, pretending to be shocked. She whispered, "Tyler, don't do this." But she wasn't looking at him. She was watching me, waiting for my reaction. Waiting for the outburst. Waiting for the heartbreak. waiting for the show. Megan leaned forward in her seat, eyes wide with anticipation, and Chloe already had her phone subtly pointed at me, ready to record the meltdown they were so sure was coming. But I didn't move. I didn't shout. I didn't break. Instead, I reached calmly into my suit jacket and pulled out my phone. The room fell silent, hundreds of eyes shifting from Tyler to me. I pressed play. The speakers crackled, and then the laughter of Emily and her friends filled the church. Her voice echoed through the hall as she rehearsed fake shock and plotted how to test my love. Then Tyler's voice followed, sounding smug and proud as he practiced objecting to the wedding. Whispers erupted instantly, guests turning, staring, covering their mouths. Emily's face drained of color, her confident smile collapsing into horror. Megan froze mid-breath, and Chloe lowered her phone so quickly she nearly dropped it. Tyler stared at the floor like he wanted to sink into it. When the audio ended, the silence was suffocating. I looked at Emily and said quietly, "If you needed to test me, you never trusted me." Then I stepped back from the altar. Gasps rippled through the crowd as I walked past the pews, past the flowers, past the lies. Emily reached for me, tears finally real, but I didn't stop. I left the church without looking back, feeling the weight of a future I had just freed myself from. The next morning, I woke up to pounding on my front door, so loud and relentless that for a moment I thought I was still hearing echoes from the church. When I opened it, Emily stood there in her wedding dress, makeup smeared, hair tangled, clutching her bouquet like it was the last piece of her sanity. She pushed past me before I could speak, crying so hard she could barely breathe. She kept repeating that it was all a joke, a misunderstanding, something I was supposed to laugh about later. Every word sounded desperate, frantic, like she was trying to convince herself more than me. She begged me to forgive her, to come back to the venue, to fix the story before it gets worse. I told her to leave. She dropped to her knees, grabbing my hand, insisting that I was overreacting and that she never expected it to go that far. Her voice cracked, but all I could hear were those recordings. Eventually, I stepped outside and told her she needed to go home. She finally stumbled away, still sobbing, the hem of her dress dragging across the ground. News of the ruined wedding spread online faster than I could have imagined. By midday, people were already posting clips recorded from inside the church, whispering, arguing in the comments, dissecting every second of the audio I had played. I didn't post anything myself, but silence didn't matter. Emily made sure to break it for both of us. She uploaded a long, emotional post claiming that I had betrayed her trust, that I had rage issues, and that the wedding collapse was my fault. But she made one mistake. She mentioned the test. She wrote that she only wanted to see my true feelings, and that my reaction was proof that I was unstable. And that one detail was enough for the entire internet to turn on her. People immediately demanded context. Screenshots of the group chat leaked from someone in her circle. Clips of the rehearsal voice notes surfaced next. Within hours, the full picture was laid out online. Every message thread, every joke, every disgusting comment about manipulating my emotions. The internet didn't hold back. Thousands of people called her out for emotional abuse, for playing with someone's feelings, for humiliating me in front of 200 guests. Strangers analyzed every line she and her friends had written, and the more people dug, the worse it looked for her. In the days after everything exploded online, I felt strangely suspended between two worlds. On one hand, the chaos around Emily and her circle kept intensifying. On the other hand, my own life had suddenly gone quiet, almost peaceful. For the first time in months, no one was demanding anything from me. No rehearsals. No planning. No pretending. It was like stepping out of a burning building and finally being able to breathe clean air again. Still, the emotional weight of everything lingered. I found myself replaying moments I had ignored before, the subtle lies, the small manipulations, The times Emily dismissed my feelings like they were inconveniences. It made me realize how slowly, almost invisibly, I had been conditioned to accept things I should have questioned. So I decided to start therapy. Not because I felt broken, but because I wanted to understand how I had let myself stay in something so unhealthy for so long. My therapist helped me untangle years of overlooked red flags and taught me how easily love can blur into obligation when you stop valuing yourself. Session by session, the guilt faded, replaced by clarity. It wasn't my job to pass tests. It wasn't my responsibility to fix someone who thrived on chaos. And it wasn't a failure to walk away from a future that would have drained me. In the months that followed, life settled into a quiet rhythm I had almost forgotten was possible. There were no more tests, no more traps, no more nights spent wondering what new emotional storm might appear. Instead, there was space to heal, to think, to rebuild parts of myself I hadn't realized were worn down. My world felt lighter, not because everything was perfect, but because nothing was pretending to be. Ava and I continued to grow closer, slowly and intentionally, building something steady rather than dramatic. She never asked me to prove anything. She never punished honesty. She simply showed up, day after day, in ways that felt real and reassuring. With her, I learned that love doesn't have to be a battlefield or a performance. It can be calm. It can be safe. It can be something that lets you breathe instead of breaking you apart. Looking back, I no longer saw the past as a tragedy, but as a turning point, an exit from a story that was never meant for me. And as I stepped into this new chapter, I realized the most important truth of all. Sometimes losing what you thought you wanted is the only way to find what you truly deserve.